Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht, part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
Congratulations to the Kings, Summer League champions, 2 years in a row.
That is something. It's something.
Did you see the Kings blog that made shirts that say this is Rangs and it has their 2 Summer League championship banners?
That is good. I really want one. That is hilarious. That is great. Good for the Kings. You know, you got to win something sometime, right? So that's
I know.
It's great for the Kings. That's great.
Hey, I will say though, like, if there was, I know you're not supposed to take anything away from Summer League, but if I was going to take something away from Summer League in terms of like a player changing my mind about them, I think Davion Mitchell would be like close to the top. Because now all of a sudden I'm like much more excited about that choice for them. Just seeing the way like all the different people he can guard. Like I'm kind of excited about their 3-guard lineup with Halliburton and Fox now.
He looked great in Summer League. Like he legitimately looked great and was the best defender in Summer League, and it wasn't very close. He popped as a defender, which like rarely do guys do that. Even like really good defenders, like rarely just like pop as a defender. You like watch him, you're like, oh, like guys can't do much against him, it was cool. It was really cool to watch. And he's small, like he's definitely small, but he can use his first step and, you know, pretty good passer. And if he's just kind of like this auxiliary piece next to those other 2 guys, like why not? Like you're not trying to win the title or anything this year. Like you're just like trying to be fun and frisky, right? So
they're definitely going to be way more. I mean, they were like one of the worst defensive teams in like the history of the sport last year.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. A lot of people commenting on last week's pod out. One thing that I love about last week's pod is that it can forever be known as the Thursday pod, right? Like we can just call it the Thursday pod from now on.
You can just blame it on that.
Just refer to it as the Thursday pod. So, contrary to what people may believe, Alex and I actually had like a great time doing that pod. And I think it was like really fun and like a worthwhile show to do, because I do think that it kind of gives like the full circle view of like everything. Like it encapsulates everything that everybody's thinking and feeling. So,
also, it's like I'm realizing that I usually do these pods at like 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. and I just have like I'm just in a different headspace at that time.
Yeah.
If you catch me at noon, like good luck, you know. Who knows who will come out?
Who knows? Oh man, let's go to the stream real quick before we get started. So our topic today is development, and specifically ranking the order of importance with regards to development for the players on the Thunder. So should be a fun little pod. In the stream, Mike McGee is here, but couldn't stick around. We have Joel Angel in Antarctica. Oh, my goodness. He said he had to church in from Antarctica one more time. Thanks so much for doing that. Will Polittle wants me to say that OU sucks. I don't really know why. I don't know what's going on there. But OU sucks. Miguel Davella is here. Brian Wright, Patrick Shannon, Liam Shea, Dylan Walker, Hoopstock 69 as always. Falk from Denmark. Jay Smooth is here. Zach Schultz, So is here. From Tempe. Phil Zoff, a little bit is here. What's up? Kai Buster Nakamoto is here. Al, did you let me back in the group chat? Is his question.
I wouldn't even know how to delete someone from a group chat. In fact, John, we had that issue with a separate friend group, and I could have deleted them, I guess, and I just started a new one with different people. It's just way easier.
John Paris and Broken Arrow, Tyler Field, So says that Andrew, your commitment to your craft has inspired me to start the road of changing my career to something I am much more passionate about. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for sharing that. My career path has been a wild and weird one, and I'm really glad to be where I'm at. So yeah, go for it. You can do it. Um, Zodic Bars Gaming from Bethany. What's up? Jacob Williams is here. Uh, Shrias is here. And I think that's it. Nathan Creamer and Sense and Rose 27 from Lexington. Thanks so much for joining. Al, let's talk development because this will be the first of many development conversations that we have because that's what this season is all about. It's taking the players that we have and molding them into players that will hopefully be one day a part of a good Thunder team. And this Thunder team will not be a good Thunder team. They could be a fun and frisky Thunder team, but they won't be good. So I thought it would be good to rank the players in order of importance of development. You want to start at the bottom and work our way up, or how do you
Well,
want to do it?
first, I want to start by talking about some criteria.
Yeah, sure.
Because when I initially was thinking about this, I really was just thinking about ceiling. Like,
Yeah,
which of these guys do I think have the biggest ceiling? Because those are the guys that I want to give developmental time to. Which, when we talk about developmental time, we're really just talking about minutes, basically, because that's all we get to see. Obviously, a ton of development happens off the court that we don't know what that looks like. But we can at least see, like, oh, they gave this guy 25 minutes a night. They're really invested in him in a way that, like for last year, like guys like Charlie Brown and Josh Hall, who were only getting like spot minutes for most of the season. Obviously, for the Thunder, they weren't high on their developmental priority list. So ceiling, obviously, is still a big one, but then also age is important. Position, I think, is important just because of like logistics. Like you can only play so many guards, so
sure.
many minutes this season.
Yep.
And on the
Yep.
flip side, like there's a lot of minutes potentially for the young big men on the team. And then the last one was the time until contract decision. Are you there, Andrew?
Mm.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Yeah. I'm
Time
here.
until contract decision, because like if you have to decide on a guy by next summer, then you kind of want to like make sure this year. And that'll come up for two guys in particular that I bumped up maybe higher than you might normally think. So I separated my ranking into tiers because that's what you do when you're smart now. Because then,
Say it's not a
what
ranking. It's a tier.
That's right. It's not a ranking. It's a tier system, and you can, if you want to argue within a tier that it should be reordered, fine. The whole reason I put them in a tier is because I view them basically the same. It gets me off the hook a little bit.
No skin off my back if you think that these guys should be ranked differently because it's not a ranking. I think it's a hilarious way to do it. And like Seth Partnow legitimately gets frustrated about it because he did his tiers, his player tiers. And if you call it a ranking, he gets upset. But the truth is kind of a ranking. Like
well, it is a ranking because I did rank them within the tiers. But I do think it's helpful because there is like a difference between certain players on this team. So I'll just to give you an example, let's start at the top. My tier one was three guys.
Yeah.
You know who they are: Shea, Poku, and Giddey. And I ranked them that way. Yeah. I'm saying if you wanted to put Giddey ahead of Poku, I really wouldn't have like a big issue with it. Like whatever. Like I could see the argument for that. I mean, he's a much higher pick. So, I mean, he's a 6th pick in the draft. Obviously, he's coming into the league with like more prestige than Poku was.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I would have it right now. I put Poku ahead of Giddey for right now just because I still feel like the upside is limitless. Limitless. It could be anything, Andrew.
I know. I actually wrote a piece. Zach Harper and I are like co-writing a piece about the Thunder. I don't actually know when it will be out. And like one of the questions is about Poku. And like the question is like, can Poku be the number 2 guy on this team next year? And an impossible question to answer, right?
Yeah.
like absolutely impossible because I mean you go and look at his stat line from last year and you just think to yourself, absolutely no chance he can be that. But then you go back and watch some of the stuff that he did, and even go back and I watched like a bunch of the Clippers game, and you're just like, huh, maybe he can. Like maybe this is possible. Because and a lot of it will depend on like how much stronger did he get in the off season. And like I know that he is like extremely dedicated to the game of basketball, and it's something that he wants to be great at, which is like a great first step for him. You know, like there are players that obviously like every player wants to be great, but not every player will put in like the work needed. And I think that Poku is at least putting the work in that's necessary to become uh, like the best version of himself. But it doesn't, even if you do that, it doesn't always work. So I'm intrigued. And I do have like a conclusion in the article that I wrote, but obviously I still just don't really know. But he's just so intriguing, so interesting, and
Well,
so much of this will depend on strength.
and what is so exciting is that a lot of his good basketball last year, or better than bad basketball, was played without
Yeah,
Shea because Shea
yeah,
was hurt by that point.
hmm
So it's just exciting to think that Poku's about to get all this developmental time with Shea specifically,
yep,
because I think that will help him a lot as well. Because I mean,
hmm
at the end of that season, they were running a lot of point Poku, like let's just see what he can do. There's a
hmm
lot of other things he could potentially do in a functional offense with someone like Shea, and so
yep.
I'm really excited for that. So would that be your top three as well?
Those are my three, and my ranking within the three is Poku, SGA, Giddy.
Wow, Poku over SGA. And again, this is developmental. It's not like saying this one's better
It's
than the
not,
other.
yeah, it's not better than the other. I just think one SGA has already reached a level and is doing things where you're like, okay, like if he even just stays here and the team
Right.
gets better
True.
around him, he will reasonably be an all-star, like at least
Right.
once. You know, like he's there. And I think that he can get better. I mean, he's number 2. Like it's not like he's like number 5 on my list of like where he needs to be developed. But Poku's ceiling does feel limitless in a way. And he feels like one of these European players, a little bit like Jokic, not like they're the same player, but that they have such a weird, unique skill set. And if they can become the ultimate version of themselves, they could be one of the best players in the NBA. Like you could see that happening with him. And so to me, like the development for him is just so important. And the fact that the Thunder held him back out of Summer League and wanted to prioritize his body and a specific plan that they have for him like shows like how important it is to them, because they could have just been like, yeah, whatever. I mean, if this were like a team like the Kings or somebody like that, it would have just been like, hey, do your thing, make sure that you like work with a trainer, come into summer league and play. I think for a lot of teams he would have just played summer league, but the Thunder are like they have him like under the microscope with his development, and they want to make sure that things like step by step are being done correctly for him to be successful. So uh, I think that he is number one just for that reason alone, and he's like the total wild card in this Thunder path back to being a good team again. Like he is like he's the biggest wild card in all of this, because if he somehow hits and you maybe hit in next year's draft, then you're just not as far away as it feels right now, from being a
Right.
good team. So I just think that he is incredibly important to this franchise. And the truth is, like, in 2 years, he could be like number 12 on this list. Like, that's certainly possible where it's like, oh no, like, it's just not going to work for
Oh
him. Like,
no.
you
Oh
know,
no.
or he could be the best player on this team. Like, there are just so many outcomes. Like, the range of outcomes is so wide with him that it's just like, okay, let's just see if we can knock it out of the park, kind of thing,
Yeah, if he's the best player on the team in a couple of years, something either went very right or very wrong.
or very very wrong. Oh,
But
and
yeah,
then Giddy's number 3, just because of the fact, one, he's also got a really weird skill set of being 6'9", and like he is legitimately that tall. Um, and then the fact that they took him 6th. He's their highest draft pick to date on this team. So
Yeah.
he's got to be up there just because of that fact. And maybe he would have been in a different. I mean, I don't actually probably would have been, but we would have a lot more to say about him had we seen more than 5 minutes and 16 seconds of him in summer league, which
Right.
was very, very disappointing. But
Okay, so we have the same top three, slightly different order. So the
yep.
tier two is where I think we'll probably branch away from each other. We'll see though. So
Okay.
I only have two guys in my tier two,
Uh huh.
and it is Dort and Baisley. And
Oh.
the reason why I put these two, so I mean Dort, everyone basically understands, and I think a lot of people would understand Baisley too. I think there's still a lot of people that are really high on Baisley, but this comes down to the time until contract decision
Mm-hmm.
because Dort only has 2 years left. Like it's this year and next year, and then
Yep.
he could theoretically be an unrestricted free agent. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would happen because I think the Thunder would like to extend him at some point. But again, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a decision you have to make in the next, 12 to 16 months. And so you really want to know how much you want to extend Lou Dort for. And so obviously he's going to get a ton of time this year. He's one of the best players on the team. But that's why I put him this high because I really want to see like what level can he get to before the Thunder commit to him and what does committing to him look like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
contract number. Obviously, Marcus Smart just signed a very nice deal for him and people immediately started comparing that to Dort and like, will Dort get something like that? And I think there's a scenario where he plays well enough where like they feel forced to or they feel like he's going to get that on the open market if we let him get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think there's a scenario where he's making more like in the 12 to $15 million range, depending on what happens this
Yeah.
season.
I think that's probably the most likely outcome. But if you had to pay him more, I don't think it would be that big of a deal because I do think he's like legitimately good. So.
Right. And then same with Bays. So Bays would be up for a rookie extension deal next summer if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked about before, like they typically in the past have not liked guys to get to restricted free agency, which is why I put him higher on this list because, we've seen Bays now for 2 years. This is his third season. Like
Yeah.
it feels like a make or break season for Bays for me because
Yeah.
of that the fact that they don't like guys getting to restricted free agency. They're going to have the opportunity to extend him next summer. So they really have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what they want to do with Bays long term this season.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and it's a great
They
opportunity
do.
for him to get a ton of minutes as well. So he should continue to get a lot of minutes.
Yeah. Although he's got more competition this year, also depending on some player decisions and stuff like that. Like he'll have more competition. Like he won't. Like I feel like last year he was just handed a bunch of minutes. I don't know if it's the same for him this year. Like he's got to earn them, which I think is important for him to be able to come in and be in his third year and earn all of those minutes. I think would be a very important step for him. So I have I have basically 4 tiers. One is like star potential tier, which is the one that we went through first. 2 is like solid starter. Like can they become like a really good starter in the league? 3 is like role player slash fringe starter type of guy. And then 4th is just like you're a vet and you're either just a really nice guy or you probably won't be on the team for like super long kind of thing.
Nice guy.
Nice guy tier. So my starter tier is different than yours. I have 3 guys in it. I have Dort in it. I have Trey Mann in it, and I have Ty Jerome in this tier. Because Dort we've already covered. Like obviously an elite defender needs to become a better shooter, needs to hone his offensive game this season, which will be a very important step for him developmentally. And then I have Trey Mann and Ty Jerome in there just because the way that both of them can shoot off the dribble is really, really important and a skill that I think could mesh really well with this group. And just their shooting in general is going to be incredibly important. And that's the skill that they have that the rest of the guys really don't. And to me, the pull up 3, the ability to hit a spot up 3 has become more and more and more important in the NBA. And both those guys have that in their bag. And can they do it at an elite level in the NBA? I think is the question. And Ty Jerome had a great season last year for the Thunder. Probably
He
underrated
did.
just because he did it mostly when they were terrible. But I think that there's with either one of them, and I don't know necessarily that they could start on this team, but they could come off the bench and play a lot of minutes for this team potentially down the road. And so to me, that's where I stand with that group.
Yeah. So you're looking at it more as like this is who you would prioritize minutes for. It sounds like.
Yeah, I prioritize minutes and just those two types of players, like the Trey Man, Ty Jerome, are guys that I think that the Thunder have always looked for and have always not been able to hit on uh,
Yeah.
from the guard spot. And I think both of them have a legitimate chance to do it, to get there. And just to have a guy, I mean, look at how important Seth Curry is to the Sixers and in the
Yeah, for
NBA.
sure.
I mean, the conversations that are being had amongst Sixers fans and Sixers podcasts and even Sixers beat writers with like a potential trade with the Blazers is, and not it's trying to get CJ, like a CJ for Ben Simmons, is how much better is CJ than Seth Curry? Is the question that a lot of
Right.
them are
Yeah.
asking themselves. And I just find that to be very fascinating because I think the answer is like he's a lot better than Seth Curry. But does he provide enough difference in value to them? I don't know. And I think that like Trey Mann and Ty Jerome uh, show the ability to be that type of player. You know, especially Ty Jerome. Like Ty Jerome, Seth Curry is not a crazy comp for between the two of them. Like both not huge guards, both guys that can just really, really shoot it and can affect the game at that level. I think Ty has at least the ability to maybe be a little bit better defensively than Seth, but neither of them are going to be great. But just the shooting can affect the game so much that like you just have to play him.
Yeah, Ty also falls into the time until contract decision because he
Yeah.
is in the same class as Bays, and so he theoretically would be eligible for a rookie extension next summer. Whether they decide to do that or not, I don't know. He's the toughest one for me to figure out. Like I almost wish we could like loan him out to a team where it
Hmm.
like makes more sense because I feel like I really believe in Ty Jerome and I feel like he's ready now in the same way that I
Yeah.
feel about Dort. But the difference
Hmm.
is that there are just so many guards on this team. I wonder if they really are going to prioritize Ty Jerome or not, even though I
Yeah.
like him a lot. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll
I
see.
think they're going to play. I think they're going to play a lot of guards. Like I just think that that's going to be the
Yeah,
case. Is that they're going to
I mean they
play?
kind of have to.
Yeah, I think they will. I don't know. And
Um,
then Trey Mann, just briefly, the ability to hit a three off the dribble, I think, is one of the skills that you look at and like that's like okay, that's the reason you draft him is the three off the dribble, and then the floater and finding his shot in the lane. Like he's pretty crafty. He showed that the shot wasn't falling in his two summer league games, but you could see him get to his spots and just creation in general is such an important skill in the NBA because I mean, you look at the Suns at in their finals run and clearly like great players, like creators, they have some creators, but I think they lacked really just kind of one more guy that could go and create his own shot. And it's just an important skill. And, being drafted at 18, like the likelihood of you becoming something is pretty small, but I think it's a worthwhile investment in him, and I think he deserves to play minutes this year.
hey, you know who was 17?
Hmm.
Poku.
Oh
Poku.
yeah, Poku. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, okay, so that was your tier. You had a tier two,
It's my
starter
tier two.
tier.
Yeah.
So I'm down to tier three, and
Mm-hmm.
so I have four guys in tier three. Again, within a tier, if you want to argue one guy should be higher than the other, I'm cool with it because I basically look at these guys all the same. This is where I came up with. I put within my tier three Trey Mann,
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Robinson Earl,
Yeah.
Teo, and Ty Jerome.
Okay.
Now, the Trey Mann being number one within that tier, basically what you were just talking about. I just feel like it's a combination of a needed skill on this team and a much higher upside specifically for creation skills
Yep.
than some of the other guys below. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, this is one where I moved him that high, partly due to position,
Mm-hmm.
because watching him in summer league, you start to get ideas like, okay, he maybe could play like a decent amount of minutes as a small ball center, and all of a sudden that completely changes his trajectory because he has way more minutes available for him if he really is able to do that. And so I think there's a scenario, depending on what happens with Derek Favors. Like I don't see Mike Muscala as an obstacle to JRE getting minutes, but I do kind of
Mm-hmm.
see Derek Favors in that way. Um, if something happens with Derek Favors and they're able to move him, I could see JRE playing like a majority of the center minutes for for this season,
I would
and
love
that'd
it.
be
I would
awesome
love
for
it.
him. Like that'd be a
Yeah.
ton of
Be great.
developmental time,
Yeah.
and so that's why I put him higher, just because of that position. And then I had Teo and Ty Jerome, which
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a concession to put Ty Jerome below Teo, because I
Mm-hmm.
know I have been branded as the Teo hater, but I also know that a lot of people would put Teo a lot higher on this entire rankings. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which which
Yeah.
which I would get. I mean, I was actually impressed. I was looking at his summer league stats because he had that one
Mm-hmm.
game where he was like 0 of 7 from three. The
He did.
fact that he ended up at 35.7% from three is actually kind of impressive, knowing that
Yeah.
he had a game that terrible.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be his swing skill. Like if Teo
Yes.
is able to hit threes, it changes a lot for him because then he could play kind of in that Ty Jerome role as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as it is right now, like he just did not have a good shooting season last season. We'll see what happens this season. He's clearly willing to take them, which I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that, because there are
Mm-hmm.
other guys, Thunder Twitter blowing up about Josh Hall because he got such an amazing dunk, which like great. But did you know that he only took 1 3 per game in the summer league? Like
Yeah.
1 3. Come on. What else are we doing? Like, what is the scenario where Josh Hall is going to be a successful NBA player without a shot?
There's not one.
There's
There's
not
not
one.
one.
And he's not
Yeah.
even willing to take them.
Yeah.
He's taking one per
I'm
game in the summer league.
yeah, I'm out on Josh Hall. I just he's